Lore of the Old World, Chapter 8, The Enchanted Wood. The Wood Elves are the secretive defenders of the great forest of Athel Loren. Their armies ever on the march, carrying spear and bow against the agents of disorder and ruin. The sentinels of ancient sites across the Old World, the Elves of Athel Loren fight a never-ending battle of vengeance against the lesser races that trespass upon their lands and the ever-spreading corruption of chaos. In their prime, the Elves of Ulthuan maintained colonies and outposts throughout the known world. Nowhere was this more true than within the bounds of Arvan, the Old World, yet it was not to last. When the treachery of Malerion beset their ancestral lands with fury and war, the Elves had little choice but to abandon many of their distant holdings and return home, lest by defending both realms they would ultimately save neither. Yet not all the Elves who had settled in the Old World were prepared to abandon it. Most notable of all those who remained behind were the elf colonies that dwelt near the forest realm of Athel Loren, those who renounced all ties to the Phoenix King and struck out in the cause of independence. So did the forest of Athel Loren become a realm unto itself. But Athel Loren is not like other forests. Its ancient trees long ago found vigour and voice, and they learned to hate the lesser beings who swarmed about the forest eaves, gnawing at their verdant majesty with axe and flame. Few intruders survive unbidden within Athel Loren's bounds, for the vigilance of the tree spirits is matched only by their loathing of interlopers. That the Wood Elves were not consumed by the vengeful spirits of Athel Loren is one of the peculiarities of history. The alliance between elvenkind and living forest was born out of a shared peril, for at that time the dwarves of the Grey Mountains pressed hard upon the forest's borders, felling trees to feed hungry furnaces and slaying elves as payment for past grudges. The elves of that region were few, and the dwarfs many. Only through combining their forces could the elves and tree spirits hope to survive. One dreadful night, a tremendous battle raged by the flickering light of dwarvish logging fires. Outnumbered by the combined forces of the elves and the thorn-limbed forest spirits defending their realm, the dwarf interlopers fought with grim desperation. Time and again the dwarf invaders charged into the woods hoping to catch the elusive elves, but the woods seemed to close around the dwarfs, binding them with vine and root, bludgeoning them with bough and branch. When dawn came, only shattered dwarf shields and patches of scorched ground remained to show that a battle had raged at all. For weeks thereafter, in the deep holds of the Grey Mountains, dwarf sentries looked westwards for some sign of pioneering armies that would never return. In Athel Loren, the battle had forged an alliance that would endure forever. From that day forth, the fates of the elves and the forest were intertwined. What began as a desperate alliance became something far deeper and more pervasive. With every passing generation, the Wood Elves became, in character, more akin to the forest they inhabit, wrathful and vigorous during the summer months, torpid and somnolent with the onset of winter. So too they have taken on the tree spirit's capriciousness and distrustful nature. One can never be entirely sure how a Wood Elf will react, for their thoughts and reasoning, bound as they are to the forest's peculiar consciousness, are unknowable to an outsider. Where once they lived for the joy of exploration, the elves became extremely hostile to the outside world, leaving the borders of their realm only to wreak bloody retribution upon those who have earned their displeasure, or to defend ancient groves in distant lands. As time marched on, these groves are ever more assailed and plundered, and so the Wood Elves have become ever more vengeful. Their desire for solitude has been sacrificed to ensure the sanctity of their race, and indeed the world at large. So it is that the great forest of Athel Loren is now not merely the Wood Elves' dwelling place, it is their ally, their protector, and their ward. The elves are bound to it body and soul. Those outsiders foolish enough to set foot within Athel Loren risk not only the wrath of the trees, but also the keen-eyed elves who watch every path and stand guard over every glade. The aloof Wood Elves are isolationists in the extreme, caring naught for the affairs of other realms and races. Their concern is solely for the survival of Athel Loren and its splintered offshoots across the face of the world. Truly, the Wood Elves feel little sadness when other nations burn, so long as their cherished woodlands can endure. Yet this is not to say that the Wood Elves entirely shun dealings with the outer world. Through their otherworldly waters of the Crystal Mere, prophetesses and scryers sift the strands of future fate, seeking significant signs or portents of the next threat. Not all such threats need to be ended entirely, but merely whittled to weakness or redirected upon a different path, one that does not lead to Athel Loren's borders. It is fortunate that it is so, for the Wood Elves are less numerous than other elven peoples, and they can ill afford bitter and bloody campaigns of indeterminable length. Better that each battle is carefully chosen for maximum effect. Slay an orc warlord, and the coalition of tribes they command is as likely to tear itself apart as it is to continue upon its rampage. Lure a beastman warherd into the defences of an empire town, and its deep-rooted hatred of men will drive all other goals before it. It is fair to say that the Wood Elves have little in the way of alliances, but rather a wide array of enemies in varying degrees, enemies that can be used as weapons against one another, as need dictates. In recent years, the atavistic beastmen have multiplied across the Old World and beyond, spawned from the dank hearts of chaos-tainted woodlands. From the north come tribes of warlike men, while the divisions within the Empire and the squabbles of its rulers are a sign of greater dangers to come. For this reason, the armies of the Wood Elves march abroad in greater numbers than ever before, waging their covert wars against those in the sway of the ruinous powers wherever they may be found, and even making alliances with other races who would stand against the rising darkness within the Old World. The Wood Elf nation is ruled by its eternal queen, Ariel, and her consort, the king in the woods, Orion. As the avatar of Isha, the ancient elven goddess of nature, Ariel is one of the most powerful wizards in the world, able to confound enemies by controlling the very woods around them, or kill them by causing nature itself to rise up and slay them. While she is the mother of her forest nation, Orion, master of the wild hunt, is its greatest general. Tied wholly to the seasons of the world, Orion dies each winter, his body consumed by a funeral pyre. With the coming of spring, Orion is reborn into the body of a young elven warrior, chosen to become the next incarnation of the King in the Woods, and continue his eternal rule. At the heart of Athel Loren stands a tree like no other, the Oak of Ages. Prodigious in both height and breadth, it dwarfs the surrounding forest and teems with life, its branches filled with spirits and spites, its roots fashioned into halls and chambers. The Oak of Ages is more than just the heart of Athel Loren. It is the centre of the world roots, magical paths that spread out across the entirety of the Old World and far beyond. The Wood Elves use these secret ways to travel the world, appearing suddenly in distant lands or vanishing from enemies as if they were never there. It is a gift of Ariel that allows her people to influence events in distant realms, often without the knowledge of their foes. The Wood Elves have little in the way of a formal military. Instead, an army of Athel Loren is an alliance of kinbands drawn from different clans, each bringing martial skills honed in the dangerous environs of Athel Loren. These kinbands seldom meet the enemy in open battle, preferring swift and deadly surprise attacks. The woods too are their allies, and the clans will call upon forest creatures, spirits and spites to aid them in battle. Great tree men might even join their ranks, uprooting themselves to aid their elven allies in the defence of their hidden home. The sight of the very trees themselves come to life is one few adversaries of the Wood Elves soon forget.